Good morning. I'm here because, as I said, I'm vice president of Rob's fan club. I was told, by the way, that we only have 3 minutes, and Susan, who was orchestrating this, promised that at the 20th anniversary, I might have 3 hours. So, those of you who are around 10 years from now, and I try to collect on the promissory note, there it is. 2 words about convergence, and that is sweet disruption. That is the way I think about convergence. And it's very different than destructive disruption. And what I want to talk about very briefly is where I think convergence has made a huge difference in an area that I care deeply about, namely with respect to health reform. Those of you who know something about the history of health reform know that there are numerous presidents, starting with FDR, Truman, Kennedy, even Richard Nixon, the Clintons, that tried to adopt health reform without success. And each time that occurred, there was always one very significant special interest group that stood up, spent a fortune to try to defeat health reform. Most recently in the Clinton iteration, it was the insurance industry. Previously, it was the American Medical Association, pharma, and so on. What convergence has done that I thought has made an enormous difference, and I'm thrilled to have had a little part of it, is that convergence brought together the key stakeholders in America's healthcare system to see if we could find common ground about possible reform. And that meant we brought together the consumer organizations, business, labor, the hospitals, the insurers, the pharmaceutical companies, the American Medical Association, and we actually did find common ground. And that common ground was in terms of expanding coverage to the tens of millions of people who don't have it. And one of the things that really occurred as a result of those discussions was that we agreed upon, we had common ground about the most significant architecture that ultimately formed the Affordable Care Act, namely expand the Medicaid program for low-income people and to expand coverage in the private sector with subsidies for those people who couldn't afford it. Without convergence, without that effort of trying to bring together strange bedfellows, we could have repeated unfortunate history. And thankfully, because of the work of convergence, we actually did something very different. So I guess I want to just say that in this very contentious period, what convergence is doing is extraordinarily important. It's not just finding common ground, but it's building trust. And boy, do we need to find greater trust in this very contentious period. So I'm thrilled to be a part of convergence. I'm thrilled to be part of the next iteration of convergence with respect to healthcare, which is continuing. And hopefully we will find common ground for the next iteration of changes in America's healthcare system. So Rob, thank you very much.